In the quiet hills of West Virginia lies Hollow Creek, a town nearly forgotten by time. It's surrounded by dense pine woods and misty valleys, where even daylight feels dim. Beneath the forest runs an abandoned railway tunnel, long sealed after a collapse in the 1950s. Locals say it's cursed, a place where the dead still walk the tracks, searching for the train that never came. The story began when Ethan Cole, a documentary filmmaker, came across an old newspaper clipping. Miners vanish in Hollow Creek tunnel collapse, 1953. The article mentioned strange sounds heard for weeks after the disaster, like voices calling for help from inside the earth. Intrigued, Ethan decided to investigate for his upcoming series on forgotten tragedies. He arrived in Hollow Creek one cloudy evening, armed with a camera, drone, and a recorder. The townspeople warned him not to go near the tunnel after dark. One old man said, "It's not the darkness you should fear. It's the echo that answers back." Ethan laughed it off. But on his first night near the tunnel, his equipment recorded something impossible, a whisper that repeated his name. When he played back the recording, the voice said, "Ethan." Still waiting down here, that was the beginning of the nightmare. A story pieced together from Ethan's found footage, his last transmissions, and the haunting evidence retrieved from the Hollow Creek site. Ethan set up camp near the tunnel entrance just as twilight began to fade. The forest fell silent. No insects, no rustling leaves, nothing but the distant drip of water, echoing from the tunnel's mouth. The air smelled of rust and wet earth. He switched on his camera. "Day 1 at Hollow Creek Tunnel," he narrated softly. "Locals believe the spirits of the miners still haunt this place. Let's find out what really hides beneath." His flashlight beam stretched across the tunnel's decaying walls. Rusted rails disappeared into the darkness like veins into a sleeping beast. As he walked deeper, the temperature dropped sharply. His breath turned white. He stopped when he heard a soft exhale, like the tunnel itself was breathing. Ethan froze. He called out, "Hello?" No answer. But his recorder captured something faint, a whisper layered under his own voice. "Go back." He backed out slowly, the beam of his flashlight trembling. Outside, the woods seemed different. The trees looked closer, leaning inward as though listening. He checked his footage, and then there it was. For one split second, a shape stood behind him in the tunnel, pale, motionless, head tilted to one side. Ethan dismissed it as a shadow or trick of light. But later that night, when he replayed the recording on his laptop, the whisper came again, clearer this time. "You shouldn't have come, Ethan." He hadn't said his name aloud in that moment. Someone, or something, else had. And in the background of the audio, a rhythmic sound began, a hollow, metallic knocking, like a train slowly rolling toward him in the dark. That night, Ethan barely slept. The rhythmic, metallic knocking from the tunnel echoed in his dreams. 3 slow beats, pause, then 3 more. When he woke, his laptop was still open, the camera connected. The recording software had started on its own at 3:07 a.m. He hit play. The footage showed his tent from the outside. He hadn't set up any external cameras. The fabric rustled, and a shadow passed by, tall, thin, moving with an unnatural rhythm. Then came the whisper again, right next to the microphone. "Come deeper." Ethan's hands trembled. He packed his gear and walked to the tunnel's mouth again, daylight bleeding through the morning fog. He had to prove this wasn't some prank, maybe electromagnetic interference, maybe squatters messing around. Inside, his radio crackled. A wave of static rose and fell, shaping itself into faint words. His name drawn out and broken. Eth. He turned in circles, but no one was there. His camera flickered. The lens distorted as if something invisible moved between him and the air. Suddenly, the static stopped. A low growl replaced it, not animal, not mechanical. It vibrated through his chest like thunder in the earth. He shouted, "Who's there?" No reply. Then on the tunnel wall, a dark handprint appeared, dripping with moisture, as though pressed there seconds ago. Ethan stumbled backward, tripping over the rusted track. The growl faded, replaced by a child's laugh, distant, echoing from far within the tunnel. When he looked back toward the entrance, the sunlight had dimmed. The world outside the tunnel now seemed much farther away than before. The next evening, Ethan reviewed the tunnel footage again, frame by frame. His heart froze when he spotted her. A pale girl standing behind him, barely visible in the background. Her dress was white, soaked at the hem as though she had walked through water. Her head tilted slightly, her eyes two hollow voids. She hadn't been there when he filmed. Determined to uncover more, Ethan returned to the site. The air was colder this time, the smell of damp iron stronger. He followed the tracks deeper into the tunnel, whispering to his recorder, "If anyone can hear me, I just want to know what happened here." The radio in his pocket crackled. A faint child's voice answered, soft and trembling. "He pushed me." Into the dark, Ethan stopped. His breath turned to mist. The voice repeated, louder this time, overlapping with static. "He pushed me." Then came a loud clang, as if a pipe had been struck. The flashlight flickered, and she appeared on the same girl standing on the tracks, head bowed. Ethan's instinct screamed to run, but curiosity anchored him in place. He whispered, "Who hurt you?" Her head snapped upward, mouth stretching unnaturally wide. Her voice was layered now, both young and ancient. "He's still here." Behind her in the shadows, two glowing eyes blinked open. The silhouette of a large figure emerged, its movements jerky and wrong, dragging something heavy along the ground. Ethan stumbled back toward the entrance, his camera shaking violently. But when he looked behind him again, the girl was gone. Only the sound of a dragging chain echoed through the tunnel, coming closer. Ethan barely slept that night. The footage replayed endlessly in his mind. The pale girl, the glowing eyes, the dragging sound. But when he checked his camera the next morning, the final minute of the video was gone, corrupted, as if someone or something had erased it. Driven by fear and fascination, he returned to the old station during daylight, determined to find physical proof. The tunnel looked almost peaceful in the sun, but as soon as he stepped inside, the temperature dropped sharply. His breath became visible again. He found deep grooves etched into the wall near where the figure had appeared. The marks were uneven, as if a chain had been violently scraped against the concrete. Nearby, half buried under the dust, he uncovered something metallic, a rusted shackle still attached to a length of heavy chain. The moment he touched it, the air changed. A faint rumble echoed through the tunnel, followed by a low whisper. A man's voice this time. She wasn't supposed to run. Ethan froze. The chain moved slightly, dragging itself along the ground before going still again. His camera picked up a strange distortion, as though invisible hands were tugging at the air around him. Panicking, he sprinted out of the tunnel. But when he reached the exit, the daylight had turned gray, as if the world itself was dimming. He looked back one last time and saw her again, the girl, and standing beside the chain, eyes wide with sorrow. She raised her hand slowly and pointed at him. Then, whispering barely above the sound of his heartbeat, she said, "Don't let him out." The chain began to rattle. Something deep in the tunnel was waking up. Ethan couldn't stay away. Sleep offered no peace. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw the tunnel, the chain, and that pale, hollow-eyed girl pointing at him. Her words echoed endlessly. Don't let him out. He returned to the station 3 nights later, this time bringing new recording equipment and a friend, Marcus, a fellow filmmaker who didn't believe in ghosts. "We'll prove it's all just urban decay in your nerves," Marcus said with a smirk. But as they descended into the tunnel, even he went quiet. The walls seemed to breathe. The faint drip of water now sounded like distant footsteps. Their flashlights flickered, shadows twisting unnaturally long. Then came the voices. Soft at first, like a breeze brushing past. Ethan stopped, realizing the whispers were forming words. "He's waiting. The chain is broken." Marcus laughed nervously, but the sound died in his throat when the wall beside him began to bulge. From the concrete, faint handprints appeared, pressing out from within, clawing to escape. Ethan filmed everything, his camera trembling. The whispers rose into a chorus of pain and pleading. Then suddenly silence. They stood frozen, the only sound their rapid breathing. And then 3 slow, deliberate knocks echoed down the tunnel. Bang, bang, bang. Marcus turned, his flashlight catching a glimpse of something crawling across the ceiling, black and fast. like a shadow unbound, disappeared deeper into the darkness. "Let's go," Marcus gasped. But Ethan didn't move. His camera light revealed a message scrawled across the wall in what looked like rust or blood. She failed. "Don't fail too." The walls shuddered again. Somewhere far below, the chain began to drag. The thing in the dark was no longer waiting. They ran, footsteps echoing through the tunnel, camera light bouncing wildly off cracked tiles and rusted pipes. But no matter how fast they moved, the sound followed. The scrape of metal, the low dragging of a chain, and the whisper that now carried weight. It was speaking to them. "She warned you. You broke the seal." Marcus stumbled, his flashlight clattering to the ground. The beam rolled across the floor, landing on something that froze them both. A small iron door half buried in the tunnel wall, with symbols scratched around the frame. Ethan lifted his camera. The door was trembling from the inside as though something was trying to push its way out. "Don't touch it," Marcus hissed. But Ethan couldn't look away. His camera was still recording, and through the tiny lens he saw what the human eye couldn't. A shape moving behind the metal. It was tall, distorted, limbs too long to belong to anything human. Then came the voice again, but this time it was a roar, a sound that shook the walls and sent dust cascading from the ceiling. The door burst open and a freezing gust of air poured through, carrying a stench of rot and something older, something ancient. Ethan dropped the camera and ran. The video feed kept rolling, capturing only the chaos. The flicker of the flashlight, Marcus screaming, and a black shape lunging toward the lens. The final frame was the chain lying broken across the floor. Hours later, when Ethan awoke alone near the station entrance, the tunnel behind him was sealed, bricked up, fresh mortar glistening as though it had never been opened, and Marcus was gone. When Ethan regained his senses the next morning, sunlight was filtering weakly through the broken windows of the station. His head throbbed, his hands were scraped, and Marcus was nowhere in sight. The only thing left beside him was his camera, miraculously intact. He didn't want to look, but curiosity clawed at him. Back home, he uploaded the footage to his laptop, the screen flickering to life. The first few minutes showed their descent into the tunnel. The laughter, the nervous jokes. Then came the door, the symbols, the explosion of noise. The frame after that was chaos, a blur of darkness, a distorted voice whispering, "He's free." But then, something impossible. The video showed Marcus still standing in the tunnel after the door burst open. But his body was wrong. His limbs twitched unnaturally, his head tilted at an impossible angle. In the flickering light, his face stretched into a smile that wasn't his. Ethan paused the footage, breathing heavily. The timestamp was still running. It had been recording for another 2 hours after he blacked out. He hit play again. The camera had fallen sideways, capturing only part of the tunnel wall. But every few minutes, a figure passed in front of the lens. Marcus, or what was left of him, dragging something heavy behind him. The sound of the chain echoed faintly, scraping closer and closer to the microphone. At the very end of the recording, Marcus stopped and turned toward the camera. His eyes glowed faintly white, and in a voice deeper than his own, he whispered, "He's coming for you, Ethan." The screen went black. And then, in the reflection of the monitor, Ethan saw movement, something standing behind him. That night, Ethan didn't sleep. Every creak of the house made him jump. Every whisper of the wind felt like the tunnel calling him back. He had deleted the footage, or at least he thought he had. But even after wiping his hard drive clean, the screen would flicker on by itself, showing static that sometimes formed the faint outline of Marcus's face. At exactly 3:07 a.m., there came a knock, 3 slow, heavy knocks on his front door. Bang, bang, bang. Ethan froze. He lived on the second floor of an old apartment building. No one ever came to his door that late. His phone buzzed on the table. An unknown number. The message read only 2 words: "Let me in." He stepped closer to the door, camera trembling in his hand. "Who's there?" he whispered. Silence. Then came a dragging sound on the other side, like someone pulling a chain across the hallway floor. He looked through the peephole. Nothing. The hall was empty. But when he pulled back, the knocking began again, this time on the window behind him. Ethan turned, his blood turning to ice. His window looked out over an alley, no balcony, no ledge. And there, pressed against the glass, was a face, pale, distorted. Marcus. The glass began to crack as the figure leaned harder, whispering in a voice that wasn't his. "You let him out. Now he wants you too." Ethan stumbled back, the lights flickering violently. Then just as suddenly as it began, everything stopped. The room fell silent. But on his floor, written in dust that hadn't been there before, were 3 words scratched by an unseen hand. "Open the door." By morning, Ethan's sanity was slipping. The knocks hadn't returned, but the silence that followed was somehow worse. Every mirror, every reflective surface in his apartment began to distort, as if reality itself was warping around him. When he passed the bathroom mirror, he noticed his reflection lagging a second behind. At first he thought it was exhaustion, but then the reflection smiled. While he didn't, he backed away trembling, but the reflection leaned closer on its own. Its lips moved silently before the words began echoing in his head. "You opened the door. He's part of you now." The chain's rattle came again, this time from inside the walls. Ethan dropped to the floor, pressing his ear against the cold plaster. There it was, slow, scraping movement, traveling through the pipes, the vents, the very structure of his home. He grabbed his camera, desperate to capture proof of what was happening. As soon as he turned it on, the viewfinder glitched. The image warped, dark tendrils creeping across the frame like veins. Then Marcus's distorted face appeared on the tiny screen, eyes wide and hollow. "Run," Marcus whispered. "He's behind you." Ethan turned sharply, the camera tumbling from his hands. In the reflection of the TV, he saw it, a tall, emaciated figure standing in the center of the room. Its eyes burned white, its form shifting like smoke. A heavy iron chain wrapped around its arm, dragging against the wooden floor with a slow metallic scrape. The lights burst. Darkness swallowed the room. And then a whisper. "Your turn," Ethan screamed. But the sound never escaped his lips. Only the faint echo of the chain remained. Days passed, though Ethan couldn't tell how many. He barely ate, barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the tunnel again. The door, the symbols, Marcus's broken grin. The entity had followed him home, creeping through screens, through sound, through light itself. One night, in a haze of fear and exhaustion, Ethan made a decision. He would tell the world. He set up his camera, lights, and microphone, determined to record one final message. The camera's red light blinked alive, reflecting faintly in his glassy eyes. "My name is Ethan Cole," he began, voice trembling. "If anyone finds this, the thing in the tunnels, it's real. It's not a ghost. It's something older. It spreads through recordings, through sound waves. If you're watching this, you might have already." He froze. The camera light flickered. Behind him, in the dim reflection of his laptop screen, someone was standing. Slowly, Ethan turned. Marcus, or what was left of him. His skin pale, eyes glowing, lips twisted into that inhuman grin. Chains coiled at his feet, tightening as he stepped forward. "You shouldn't have told them," Marcus whispered. The lights exploded, plunging the room into darkness. The camera fell, capturing only shadows moving violently across the frame. The last sound on the recording was Ethan's scream, followed by the dragging of the chain. When authorities found the apartment weeks later, Ethan was gone. The footage remained, uploaded automatically to his channel. It spread fast, shared by thousands, viewed by millions. And then strange things started happening. Viewers reported hearing knocks at 3:07 a.m., or seeing faces in their reflections while watching the video. The original upload has since vanished, but copies, they're still out there, still spreading.